The founder and first leader of North Korea was Kim Il-sung, who had a policy of juche, which literally translates as self-reliance, but invariably cut North Korea off from the rest of the world, except China, who still props up the regime to this day. Kim Jong-un is currently in dispute with the United States because he refuses to give up his nuclear program. If you look at it from Kim Jong-un's perspective, I'm going to give up my nuclear programs and then they're going to overthrow me. A lot of people ignore the fact that the military is what really runs the country. So it's him trying to maintain power on a nation that if something went wrong, something big, something that opened the eyes of the nation, kind of broke them out of their mass propaganda, it could mean the death of both him, his family, and his entire administration. So, I don't know, game theory would suggest that they're going to make moves that, from our perspective, is a bit weird. Anyway, so the line of succession in North Korea went from Kim Jong-il's son to Kim Jong-il to Kim Jong-un, who rules today. They were all brutal dictators, and there are currently 150 to 200,000 North Koreans living in prison camps. So if someone were to, say, spill soda on the face of the, like a picture of the face of the supreme leader, they would be sent to a labor camp, which is in Siberia.
He quite simply thought the whole world was a prison camp. He didn't know that the country North Korea existed, that something exists outside of that country. He didn't even know that the mastermind behind his miserable life was Kim Jong-il. The children from Camp 14 were so worthless that they didn't deserve knowledge of the life and thoughts of the dear leader.
So Kim Il-sung's son is named Kim Jong-il, who according to the state's propaganda administration bowled a perfect 300 the first time he bowled and sunk 11 holes in ones the first time he played golf. So it's just another example of the propaganda that's coming out of the administration. Anytime the supreme leader does anything, it's like to perfection. They even say that when he was born, the stars aligned in a certain way that makes him almost like a modern day prophet. So all television in the country is turned to state media and the internet doesn't exist. So they're force-fed propaganda at all times and cut off from the rest of the world, which is a really strong move for keeping people brainwashed. Is the media that they get has to be pro-government. You know, Russia does this as well, but you can't even say just Russia because there's a research article by Tom Secker and Matthew Alford. They said, I quote, both the CIA and the Department of Defense use Hollywood to portray their respective agencies in the best light possible. Whether it's providing military equipment or consulting on a project, they're willing to spend millions on positive publicity coming out of Hollywood. So the CIA will literally fund something like 13 Hours, the Benghazi thing. And the reason being is because the CIA prefers to support films that enable citizens to develop a stronger sense of patriotism in a world of moral ambiguities. As a result, the CIA is much less fearful of revealing the dark side of its undertakings as long as the given movie presents a story that shows the value of the CIA in protecting the security of the nation. So they don't mind showing you a movie about drone strikes and the moral ambiguities as long as it portrays them in a positive light. So one of the biggest pet peeves I have is the drone strike situation. So essentially we have a drone over the Middle East and it'll fire a Hellfire missile and it'll kill a civilian or multiple civilians. As a matter of fact, according to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, I think it was, there were more civilians killed than terrorists, to which the Obama administration contradicted them. But they also said that if anyone is killed on a quote-unquote battlefield, they're not considered a civilian. But it turns out their definition of a battlefield is essentially anywhere where they're launching drone strikes. So basically, if you're anywhere in Afghanistan, if you're anywhere in a place where they dropped a missile, well, you were a militant. So their civilian numbers were actually extremely low. The drone situation allows for a moral gray area, and I don't know how the CIA and the State Department got away with it for so long, but I don't see it slowing down, especially with the Trump administration and its continued war on terror and the dropping of the mother of all bombs. Anyway, back to North Korea. So North Korea conducted 5 nuclear tests since 2006 and claims to have a hydrogen bomb, but the U.S. says it does not. This is another one where the propaganda meets the real world, and the real world might be actually spitting out even more propaganda. So we're not sure if North Korea does have a hydrogen bomb, or if they're reusing nuclear fuel, or if their nuclear weapon really is functional and capable of getting to the United States. So right now, they're not really able to reach the mainland United States. They were able to hit Guam, and they threatened to hit Guam. They're not exactly accurate. A lot of times they'll launch a nuclear missile and it'll go way over its target, which is, I guess, fortunate, but not really. So they'll launch a missile, and they've done this recently, is they'll launch a missile over Japan and it'll blow up like outside of their shores. But imagine this is a military that when they launch a missile, it could very much miss its target. So can you imagine if they aim just over Japan and they happen to hit Japan? Like what the response will be, both from Japan, from China, from the United States. Like we could literally be dragged into another world war because North Korea doesn't aim well. All right. So the border between North Korea and South Korea is one of the most militarized in the world, according to the State Department. Pyongyang has about 1.2 million military personnel compared to 680,000 troops in South Korea, and 28,000 U.S. troops are stationed as a buffer between the two regimes. I had a teacher in high school that said this, and it stuck with me like my entire life. He said that the troops stationed between North Korea and South Korea are essentially a speed bump. If North Korea decided to attack South Korea, they would get mowed over. They are an extremely militarized country, and although they have technology that is way behind the United States military, 28,000 troops really doesn't do anything to a military that has all of its guns aimed at both you and the country that you're in. So they also have these giant cannons facing South Korea. And if we were to go to war, South Korea would be obliterated before we could even really make a move towards North Korea. So when you hear Donald Trump say things like,
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States, they will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before. Thank you.
Thank you.
that's dangerous. It's extra dangerous because North Korea is unstable and it's led by a mentally unstable person, and they have to protect their administration. Just if you look at it from their perspective, America is the great evil threatening their administration, and their country is already fledgling. So if something did legitimately threaten North Korea, they would have to retaliate. So if the United States did make a move on North Korea, if there were parachutes in the sky, if there was a military maneuver that genuinely made people question the administration, they may attack South Korea. So Kim Jong-un's older half-brother was assassinated, as was his uncle. And pretty much every time anyone does anything the current leader doesn't like, it's off with his head, which reminds me of the Queen of Hearts on Alice in Wonderland. How if anyone makes her mad, she's like,
Off with his head! Off with his head! Off with the head!
their financial state is propped up by counterfeit pharmaceuticals like Viagra and narcotics like methamphetamine and fake cigarettes. They use like American cigarettes and they export them to different countries. So that's pretty much it. That's the state of North Korea. If you have any research that you'd like for us to break down, or if you have an essay that you wrote in undergrad, or if you have a dissertation from grad school, or pretty much any work that's really cool and will make for an interesting topic, we have a Google Hangout for PolyPsych podcast that's open to the public. If you go into our Google Hangout, you can post your article or any of your work, and I'll go back and forth with you, ask questions about it, kind of dig into your research, and then I will do a show on it, especially if it's interesting. If it's not interesting or like difficult for me to grasp, it may take me a few days to try to figure it out. Like as of right now, I have one guy on there who's talking about deep learning, and it's going to take me a little while to figure out like machine learning and how the intricacies of like computer, like AI. So that may take me a while. Anyway, go to the Google Hangout for the PolyPsych podcast and subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on YouTube, and subscribe on Player FM. Subscribe everywhere. Just subscribe somewhere and download the PolyPsych podcast. Again, it's your host, Anthony Lindsay, and thanks for listening to the show.